Hello and welcome to Tonalist Painting with M. Francis McCarthy. This is your painter in residence, M. Francis McCarthy, and here it is, day 17, 25 days of tonalism. The study I've done today is painted after Edward Mitchell Bannister, and it's called River Scene. I've done quite a few Edward Mitchell Bannisters, and I guess he's so awesome that we have to say all three of his names, kind of like Martin Johnson Heed or a few others I can think of. But I like his work a lot. He was a tonalist, and not just a tonalist. I mean, he worked in that, I'd say, that Barbizon style, which is very close to tonalism. In fact, it may be hard at times to distinguish the difference between the two. I could say overall I feel like tonalism's generally more dark and more saturated in tone, but whatever, it's just a word, an appellation that we're using to describe a period of art and a style of painting landscapes. Like I said, I've covered Edward several times in the past. I may dig up it's very easy to find information about, because he was one of the few African American landscape painters, and he was rediscovered and had a resurgence of interest in the 60s, due in large part to the civil rights movement, and he deserved it, and I think he's really awesome. There's probably a bunch of other painters from that time that didn't get the resurgence that they might have deserved, but whatever. He's good, and he had a lot to overcome to be a landscape painter, and I like his work. I like his approach. This painting, I like it and I don't like it, and I did a study after it, so I think the proof is always, words talk is cheap. There's a lot of things I like about it. The shape of the tree itself is it's kind of odd to me. I kept trying to reconcile it, and if you go to my blog post that corresponds with this video, you'll see the original there at the bottom of the post. I haven't looked at it for over a year now, so I've been pretty much relating to my study, and that's that. Anyway, you put Edward Mitchell Bannister into Google, you'll get a ton of information, since, like I said, he had a resurgence in the 60s. So you're wondering, how's it going in the studio? Well, I have to say that Monday through Friday of this week, today is Saturday, by the way, March 11th, was just a non-starter. Nothing happened at all. I was basically just making prints for a few of my galleries. I sell some prints really fairly cheaply, but it's my way of, a lot of people just can't afford original paintings, and so I do prints, and they're of nice quality. They're on inkjet, and I print them on my photographic quality inkjet printer on very nice paper, and then mount them to a piece of mat board, and sell them pretty reasonably. And I'm happy to people that want to support my work. They want a piece of it. It's something for those folks, and I make very little on them. In fact, I've tried actually raising the prices on them, but it gets out of that immediate buy zone as I raise the price. So, whatever. It's a good deal, and I'm happy to do it. Anyway, I lost a whole bunch of the week on that because I have to color calibrate all of these. You can't just, I take really good photos of my paintings, and I pride myself on that. But for whatever output device you're going to use, the colors of the output device are going to change. They have to be your image has to be calibrated for each device. And so basically, I went and I did that for about 25 newer images. And the good part is once I do it, it's done. It's just something I've been putting off for a long time because I really just want to paint. But now, speaking of painting, I'm up to something a little new, a little different. It kind of got started about 2 weeks ago. I had a few paintings hanging around that I was disappointed in for one reason or another. About 2 weeks ago, I took one of them and I coated it. Actually, I didn't have. I was reading recently about burnt umber, and I was very. It's not a color I put on my palette, but I was very curious about it. It's a very old pigment and has a real storied history. Um, and I don't have any of that, but what I did was I mixed some raw umber with some burnt sienna. It looks exactly the same as burnt umber. Funny how that works, but it has a reddish undercurrent to it, but it's definitely what you would call a brown, and a fairly dark color. But I took this painting I'd had and I painted over the top of it with an application of burnt umber and let it dry, and then the next day I just went in and did a new painting over the top. And the other thing I did that was quite different is instead of my usual chromatic black, I was using just ivory black as my darkest black. And my thinking is I was kind of trying to get more of an old mastery feel, even though my brushwork and brush handling isn't old mastery, and I'm working not completely alla prima, but very directly. As a matter of fact, the painting I did, I'm real happy with it. It was a bit of a struggle working on that dark brown, and but I'm happy with the painting to the degree where I just last week while I'm working on this stuff and looking at it, I am going to be taking it through a second pass, but I don't want to do much to it. I kind of like it the way it is, which is always good. So recently I've been getting things together for this museum show I've got coming up here in Fongaray. By the way, I have those dates. It's going to be July 21st through August 20th. So that's, for those of you that want to fly out and see that, please do. I will be videotaping the show. I'm going to also be doing a little like brochure thing for that too. So I'm working for that show right now. Everything I do that's good, it's going to be going into that show. And so I was in the process of pulling things together for this gallery I have to restock this week. That's the other thing I had to do along with these prints. I was going through a lot of my old work, and there's some, I know when I pull out a painting and I just don't want to look at it, that it's something I need to get rid of. And I have about 9 or 10 like that. Every year I go through and I maybe grab a few more. But in my off time last week, I was sanding those down, and last couple days I've applied a coat of actual burnt umber, so I've got like about 9, maybe more, panels already with this brown, which is very different than my usual burnt sienna, which is a red, straight up red, kind of bright. And these are, I've got subjects, and one of the things I'm doing is I've gone back and quite a lot of motifs I may have painted about 7 years ago when I first came out here to New Zealand, and I was working a bit differently then and much smaller. I'm going to realize those some of those motifs I thought were quite strong and haven't been done as larger paintings, especially in my bolder, more direct current style. So I've got quite a few that I'm going to be doing, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm pretty stoked because sometimes it's good to change it up, and this is a big change for me. And painting over this burnt umber as opposed to the burnt sienna, much darker, much different. I'm going to use that black as my darkest, which gives things a subtle different feeling. Really, it does. I kind of figured out some of that doing the 25 days of tonalism. There were certain paintings I knew that if I did it with my usual chromatic black, which is a mixture of phthalo green and alizarin crimson, it wouldn't have the proper feeling, so I would just use ivory black. And that's the great thing about the 25 Days of Tonalism project, and the one I'm also working on in spare moments now, the 25 More Days of Tonalism, is that it gets me thinking in different ways, gets me doing things subtly different in an attempt to sort of do a study after someone else's work. So that's really valuable. And when you get to a certain level of ability, your progress is going to be incremental. But sometimes, the important thing is to be making progress. And doing these studies is certainly something that helps me do that. Anyway, I can say we're getting close to the end. Thanks for joining me today for day 17 of 25 Days of Tonalism. If you'd like to see more of my work, go to landscapepainter.co.nz and check out my blog there. You can follow the blog through there. And we'll be back tomorrow with one of my paintings, which will be Sunday. Meanwhile, take good care and stay out of